Good night, good night, good night, internet. That doesn't sound right, does it? That's like it's what you say when you're leaving somebody. It's not a greeting, but it is night. I don't know. I guess you just say good evening. Even I always thought good evening kind of meant the early hours of the night, and it's just about midnight here. Moving into Tuesday, February 25th, Eric Arnold here, the Big E, in his sports barn, where I am going to give you some NCAA college basketball picks for Tuesday. We'll recap our all of two picks that we had for Monday. And I'll talk about some other things. What else is on the docket here? I wanted to talk a little college basketball, and then we've had a whole weekend retrospective of American hockey versus Soviet hockey. So I just wanted to put a bow on that. There were some points brought up that I wanted to expound on that I thought maybe were not exactly accurate. So I wanted to give all of you a history lesson a little bit. All right, so what happened here tonight? We had all two picks. Nebraska getting 14 at Illinois. I watched the majority of this game. Nebraska was much the best. That game should not have been as close to a non-cover as it was. Nebraska, if they could just keep from dribbling the ball off their feet and get the occasional rebound, that team might be half good. But they kicked the ball around, and Illinois almost broke away there at the end. But we were in the right place on that one, and we covered it 59-71. And then Oklahoma State getting 15.5 at Kansas. They were down 10 at halftime, and then Kansas just pulled away from them. Probably this game was never really in doubt. We lose 83-58. I mean, looking back on it, was a bad pick. We lost. When your goal is to make 54, 55, 56% success rate, well, that means you're going to lose 45% of the time. I don't know, we were in the wrong place here. That is a lot of points in conference. I think it maybe perhaps is just more indication of the power of Kansas. That's not a real good spot there for those guys to cover, and they went ahead and did it anyway, coming off that huge win at Baylor. Oklahoma State, maybe coming off a win at Oklahoma, maybe that tired them out. Maybe they weren't feeling the necessity to give a huge effort there at Kansas, figuring they had money in their pocket already. Who knows? I did note one thing. I watched all of about 3 minutes of that game. I've said in a previous video that Kansas reminds me of the mid-'80s Patrick Ewing Georgetown Hoyas. Well, tonight they really look like the Georgetown Hoyas because Kansas has got some kind of alternate third jersey that they wear. I don't know if this is, maybe they've worn it before, but, I've never seen it where it's gray. Well, now these guys really look like Georgetown. So, and for those of you that were born yesterday, the mid-'80s Georgetown Hoyas were awesome. That was an incredible team from 1982 through 85. From Ewing was there for all 4 years. They used to do that back in the day where guys would actually stay in school. I forget why. Maybe the NBA had a rule about drafting people until they were seniors. I honestly cannot remember. But that team was incredible. They won the title in '84, and only an absolute miracle by my Villanova Wildcats kept them from going back-to-back in '85. So if Kansas is that good, then Kansas is probably your champion this year. But that's yet to be decided. We're not making any predictions or picks on the champion just yet. I'm just impressed with the Kansas team. All right, so let's see. So that was old business. What else? Oh, I saw Florida State had a real nice win tonight. They were down. I mean, at home to Louisville, and I like that Louisville team. I'm impressed with them. And you know, Florida State just started playing some defense and getting some stops and getting out in the open court and running. And you know, they just flipped the switch and had like a 20-point burst on Louisville and just, you know, won it going away. So Florida State is perhaps a threat here. You know, that might be a team you might be thinking about. You know, not your standard Kansas, Baylor, Duke, what have you, when you fill your brackets out. Florida State looks like perhaps they're the best team in the ACC. Well, so that's very possible. What else? Okay, here, I want to talk about this Russian hockey thing. A lot of good stuff this weekend. If you had a chance to tape some of it to watch it later or you watched it live. 40th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice. And I did see in numbered places they were referring to the Red Army team, which is basically the team the USA Olympic team defeated at Lake Placid, as they were referring to that team as the best team in the world. You know, just period. Best team in the world. Now, I'm going to take issue with that because I don't think they were the best team in the world. I don't think the Red Army team at any point was better than, say, the NHL's best team or teams. It's probably better than most of the NHL teams, but I doubt that it was better than the best teams. Probably it was not better than, say, a collection of Canadian All-Stars. So I'll give you, and here's my reasoning as to why this is. They used to play something called the Super Series. The first time they played it, it was in 1976. That was when the Red Army, there were two teams for the Soviets. They had like their A team and their B team. The A team was the Red Army. And then they had a B team that I think they called them like the Wings or something like that. They weren't as good as the Red Army. So those two teams came over here in late 75 to play a series of exhibition games against the NHL teams, which those teams were in the middle of their season at that time. So the Red Army, they beat the Bruins badly. They beat the Rangers badly. They tied the Canadians 3-3. So now, and the Wings, they're doing good too. The B team is beating a lot of their competition too in the NHL. So now the NHL's not looking so good. It's like, wait a minute, who are these guys? They're coming over here and kicking our ass. Well, now the last game they got to play is the Red Army is up against a two-time Stanley Cup defending champion Philadelphia Flyers. And that game was played in January of 1976. And that was not the best Flyers team at that point. The Bernie Parent was no longer in net. But still two-time defending champion. This game's at the Spectrum. And the Flyers are ready for these guys. I don't know if perhaps some of these other NHL teams took the Super Series lightly, but I can assure you the Flyers did not. There is a clip of the Flyers coach, Freddie Shero, before the game against the Red Army. And he's talking about, well, you know, if we win, we'll be sky high, and if we lose, it'll be worse than dying. I mean, when do you ever hear a modern-day coach say something like that? You put the microphone in front of, like, Bill Belichick, he doesn't say, well, if we lose to the Jets on Sunday, it'll be worse than dying. They just don't. Now, he might be thinking that, but they never say it. Well, Fred Shero said it, and that's how he felt, and the Flyers played like it, because they came out there and they just hit and hit and hit the Soviets. Oh, man. Within the first, I would say, 10 minutes, Ed Van Impe comes out of the penalty box, creams one of their best players, Valery Karlamov. Down he goes like a heap of potatoes. Boom! And the Soviets were just oh wow, this sucks. These guys are playing rough and tumble hockey, which, you know, it's a legal way to play it, or at least it is in the NHL. They went off the ice. They just rounded all their guys up and said, we're going home. And they go off the ice, and everybody's like, what's going on here? Are we going to play this game or not? Well, the Soviets used to do little bullshit like that. Little stupid mind games, little bullshit that any way for those guys to get an edge. As legend has it, the owner of the Flyers, Ed Van Impe, was in the discussions in the locker room between the Soviet management and the NHL management, where they're going back and forth about, oh, you guys are playing like a bunch of goons. And Ed Van Impe said, tell them if they don't get back out there, they're not getting paid for the series. Well, back out there they go. And the Flyers then proceeded to beat them 4-1. Joe Watson scored a shorthanded goal. He never used to score. And Freddie Shero said Joe Watson scoring against the Russians basically set Russian hockey back 40 years. So these guys weren't the best. They were an excellent hockey team, but I would argue they were not the best in the world. Those teams would be the Dynasty late 70s Canadians, the early 80s Islanders, and even a collection of Canadian All-Stars. If you ever want to be entertained, look up something called the 1972 Summit Series on YouTube. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. It's a piece of Canadian history. If you can, apparently 30% of my audience is from places not in the United States, so maybe that's Canada. The Canadian history, do you believe in miracles? The Canadian equivalent of that is Henderson has scored for Canada. Remember that. Henderson has scored for Canada. That is the equivalent of do you believe in miracles? It was an 8-game series, 4 in Canada, 4 in the Soviet Union, 1972, basically the West's first exposure to Soviet hockey, and it was something. It was something. I mean, it basically, not to give the whole series away to you, but imagine Aruzione's goal, which happened at 10 minutes in the third period to put the USA up. Imagine that happening after an 8-game series with 90 seconds to go. And so the Summit Series was a fantastic showdown between East and West, ultimately with the West coming out on top by just that much. That's my spiel on Russian East, the Russians, versus West hockey. I could give you an hour spiel about the Summit Series, so you're probably bored and want to hear some college basketball picks. Okay, so I do actually have 7 picks here for you on Tuesday. So let's have it. The A10, LaSalle, out of the Fighting City of Philadelphia, 13-13, 172 Pomeroy ranking. They're getting 11.5 down at Davidson, and they're 14-12. Pomeroy ranking 71. Well, right here, I mean, Bill Parcells will tell you where we're going to go. I mean, the records are similar. Davidson, of course, carries a lot more street cred than LaSalle. But I'll tell you this, if you calculate the against the spread records this season in the A10, do you know who's on top? Wait for it, LaSalle. So they're having a pretty good year. Exceeding expectations with Ashley Howard at coach. Ashley Howard apprenticed under Chris Mack. We like him. And he apprenticed under Jay Wright. We really like him. So LaSalle burned us a few weeks ago at St. Louis, but we're coming right back with them here. We do think we got an edge. That's a lot of points. We'll take a crack at it. We'll see if LaSalle can go down there and get it done. All right, 2 bad teams in the Big 12. TCU 15-12, 87, plus 2.5. They're at Iowa State, who's having a lost season. They're 11-16, 81. I think they lost one of their best players to injury recently. They just got absolutely trashed against, was it Texas Tech, who was in there. It's such a tough place to play historically in there at Ames, and they're just having a bad year. I think Texas Tech went in there and blew them the hell out. So what are we doing with this? Well, TCU simply does not impress us at all. Neither does Iowa State, but Iowa State historically has been better than TCU. And we're going to just try to play this one as a legacy type play that Iowa State's going to find some pride tomorrow night. They're going to try to not, that's got to be pretty embarrassing losing by 30 points at home. So I think they're going to rally the troops a little bit. That is historically an incredibly tough place to play. They usually sell that place out. A hard sellout every night. That's relatively unusual in college basketball. There's not that many arenas that do that sort of thing, except for, your standard blue bloods. So we think Iowa State is going to try to come out and show some pride here. This is a very beatable opponent, and we think they're going to do what they got to do to get it done. So we're going to lay the 2.5, and we're going to take Iowa State. At home, that's right, it's a home team. It happens occasionally. It happens that I pick a home team occasionally. All right, DePaul, 14-13, 83, plus 8 at Xavier, 17-10. Xavier coming off a tough beatdown loss against Villanova. DePaul actually has beaten somebody. I called them a falling knife a couple episodes ago. Well, I guess they've hit the ground now because they beat Georgetown. I think that was over the weekend. So you're going to pick the knife up. We were going to pick the knife up, and we were playing DePaul. DePaul probably just has the misfortune of being in a conference which is just a little over their head. And just the repeated beatings that they take probably keeps that program from getting better. But, Xavier here, Xavier's not Villanova. Xavier, this is a spot where Xavier probably needs this game to solidify their tournament spot. But needing a game and getting a game, two different things. I think DePaul has probably one of the better teams that they've had there in many years. So we kind of think that DePaul is a live play here. Like I said, I wouldn't have touched them 2 weeks ago, but now that they've found this, they rallied the troops there against Georgetown. They found that maybe they're not just going to go get blown out every night. 8 points, a lot of points. Maybe this will be a low-scoring, slug-em-out Big East game where DePaul ends up losing by 7. That would be acceptable. DePaul. Okay, SEC. Going down to College Station here. Kentucky, 12-82-5, 26th Pomeroy ranking. I find that somewhat surprising. I find that surprisingly low. I guess they maybe have a soft schedule. I don't know. But anyway, they're 6.5-point favorites at Texas A&M. 14-12, 134. We're going to take a swing here with Texas A&M, believe it or not. Not something we normally do here. I hope I'm not getting bullied into this by everybody banging and saying, oh, you never did some teams. Well, I think my home record now is like 14-5, so I have been looking for some spots to play some home teams. leave 1 star on that one just because high energy Buzz Williams has stuck it to us more than once this year. And I do like this Kentucky team. I think that is a team that perhaps, I mean, I don't know you're ever going to sneak up on anybody when you're Kentucky. I mean, if we're looking forward into the tournament, hey, Kentucky, you know, if you write Kentucky down on your Final Four, I don't know anybody's going to be, wow, that's courageous. You know, what a fly under the radar dark horse pick that is. You know, everybody figures Kentucky's got those super athletes that if they're on the team there, then they're there for a reason. I mean, they're getting the pick of the pick of the pick of the pick in the United States as far as who is a good basketball player or not. So why, after all that, why are we taking Texas A&M? Well, I mean, that team's improving. They're improving. I think they've won 3 in a row. We really like the coach. We think it may be just a little soon for him, but he's a good coach. I think it's his alma mater. I mean, this is probably his last roundup, his last stop on the train, I guess. That's the type of thing where he might be there for 20 years if he has success, and they pay him. So we're thinking Texas A&M is a team on the move, on the come. Kentucky, maybe this is just a spot where they're going to take a little bit of a break. I think for the most part they've got the SEC title locked. They got a 2-game lead with about 4 to go. So this could be a spot where they just kind of, just take a break. So we're hoping for a rabid sellout, crazy, full house, tear down the rafters. Here comes Kentucky. Let's have the big party game here for A&M that will carry them to a win or loss by 6 or less. Okay, what's next? Number next. Back in the Big 12. Texas Tech 18-9, 15. They are a 2-point favorite at Oklahoma. Oklahoma 16-11. Pomeroy ranking of 42. Oklahoma coming off of a bad loss at Stillwater over the weekend. I believe it was Texas Tech that went into Iowa State and kicked the living shit out of them. This game is at the Oklahoma City Thunder Arena in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma played there earlier this season. In January, they played Mississippi State there. They beat them by a point. They had about 6,500 fans there. And I think that game was on a weekend. I'm not 100% sure about that. I think it might have been on a weekend, but I'm not 100% sure. At any rate, we think Texas Tech is the play here. Let me tell you why. I just don't, Oklahoma has not impressed me all year. Now they're going in, they're playing in this giant empty NBA arena where they're going to have, they'll have some fans, but it's going to be mostly empty. There's probably going to be more empty seats than are going to be full seats. And I don't think that generates a whole lot of interest or excitement in the home team. All that tells them is, hey, you're nothing special. So Texas Tech, we've had some good games with them. We've had some bad games with them. That is a team, though, that if they have their A game going, Oklahoma can't handle it. Texas Tech definitely has another gear that Oklahoma doesn't have. We think it's just more likely than not that, and they don't need that other gear to cover that too. They both play a good game. Texas Tech's just better. So we'll take Texas Tech. If we get lucky and they have a good game like they did Saturday, maybe it wasn't just a good game. Maybe they're on to something. Maybe that's a team that's found something, hit a groove, and they're going to have multiple games like that. Well, if that's the case, then they're going to cover that easily. So let's hope that's it. Okay. Roy Williams, here he is again. Roy Williams in the ACC. He is on the, he's not on the road, I'm getting confused. I'm going backwards, let's go forwards. NC State, 17-10, 50 Pomeroy ranking. I guess they're on the bubble, I guess. I don't know. They're an ACC team, so they're probably a 5 seed. They're getting 2.5 points from Roy Williams. Poor Roy Williams. 10-17, 91 Pomeroy ranking. The worst Carolina team since what was the name of that guy? Doherty? Matt Doherty? Was he the coach that the last time Carolina was this bad? I was thinking about that the other day, that they were showing some highlights of the last 5 years of champions and whatnot. Carolina, I mean, was it in 16, the first Villanova title? Carolina, almost beat Villanova. It was that close. The next year, Carolina goes out and does win the title. So, you had 2 years there where Carolina was essentially the best or the second best team in the country. And what has happened to these guys? What has happened to these guys? And the numbers continue not to reflect the Pomeroy numbers. I think Pomeroy has North Carolina State winning by a point. But Carolina is a 2.5 point favorite at home because I guess everybody just cannot believe the Tar Heels are this fucking bad. Well, we think that they are that bad. We're just going to do it again. Play against these guys. I mean, nothing would surprise me. Let's put it this way. Nothing would surprise me. If suddenly Carolina puts on a push, suddenly wins a few games, and they make this dramatic run through the ACC tournament to the finals against Duke, and I get to listen to ESPN, Jay Bill, well, it wouldn't be Jay Bill as he hates Carolina, but Billy Packer type, I can't think of the names at the moment, but they're all going, oh my God, Roy Williams, oh, the Tar Heels, what a masterful comeback, oh. I'm okay with him just being bad. I'm okay with that. They can just stay bad. I think I'm probably in the majority on that one. Let them stay bad. Lastly, we have Colorado State, 19-10. They are getting 13.5 points at San Diego State, 26-1, number 5 Pomeroy ranking. So, were we going to say that San Diego State now, having lost to UNLV, is going to bounce off that loss and have a huge, angry, heroic outburst, showing the country that that was simply a fluke, and they are going to run Colorado State out of the building, demonstrating that they are a top team deserving of the number 1 seed? No, we're not. We're taking Colorado State, of course. Other than the model says take it, I do think there is something to that if you have a long streak of something, either good or bad, and you break the streak, then, let's say it's a long winning streak, then the next game after that, there's a decent chance you're just going to go ahead and lose again. Or if I have a long hitless streak, I'm 0 for 30 at the plate, and I finally get a hit, then there's a decent chance the next time I'm up, I might get another hit. I think I have no data to back that up. That's just a hunch. But we do kind of think San Diego State now, they can take a breath, they can relax, the heat's off. They might take this game off and just really, there's really nothing for these guys to play for. I don't think they need to blow people the hell out to get that number 1 seed. And I'm not convinced that that's a driving, burning thing for them anyway. We have to be the number 1 seed. We have to be, or our whole season is ruined. I mean, they know that the rubber's going to hit the road in a couple weeks in the tournament, and 1 seed, 2 seed, I don't know, that stuff motivates these guys. All right, so video getting long. Let's finish up. Recap: LaSalle 2 stars, Iowa State at home 1 star, DePaul 2 stars, getting 8. Texas A&M 1 star at home, getting 6.5. Texas Tech at Oklahoma City -2 against the Sooners. NC State plus the 2.5 at Chapel Hill. Colorado State plus 13.5 at San Diego State. So we got 7 games going. Well, let's see how it goes. Our record is 164 and 134, which is slightly below 55%. So we're hoping to, have a winning night tomorrow. Let's see what happens. Hit the like button. Thank you for being here. If you find any of this interesting, you can go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, we'll probably see you tomorrow night. So from me to you, Eric Arnold, the Big E, saying good night and good gambling.